My wife cheated on me with an influencer and abandoned our son for fame. Now I inherited millions, and she came back begging after losing everything. I'm 35 years old. I'm a doctor, and 3 years ago my life changed in ways I never imagined, both for worse and for better. And the truth is, I need to tell this story because there are still days when I can't believe everything that happened. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Victoria at the hospital where we both worked, she was a nurse. I had just finished my residency, and from day one there was something between us. You know, that connection you think is special. We got married after 2 years of dating. A nice but simple wedding because we were both paying student loans and barely starting our careers, and for the first few years everything seemed to be going well, or at least that's what I thought. Lucas was born when I was 33, and honestly he was the best thing that had ever happened to me. This perfect little human being who depended completely on us. Victoria seemed happy at first. She took her maternity leave and everything was going according to plan, but after a few months, I started noticing that something was changing. She was constantly on her phone, always posting photos on Instagram, obsessed with getting more followers and likes. She talked all the time about becoming an influencer and leaving nursing, which seemed fine to me if it made her happy. But the thing is, she was spending less and less time with Lucas and more time in front of her phone, taking photos, editing content, answering messages. I worked long shifts at the hospital. You know how a doctor's life is. And when I came home, I expected to find my family. But what I found was Victoria recording videos for TikTok while Lucas was in his playpen. And when I asked her if she had spent time with the baby, she would say, "Yes, of course, that I shouldn't exaggerate." Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, but I was too busy being the dedicated doctor and present father to refuse to see the obvious. Victoria started going out more. She said she needed content for her social media, that she had to go to trendy cafes, to events, to photogenic places, and I would stay with Lucas, which didn't bother me at all because I adored my son. But I was starting to wonder when exactly I had stopped being her husband to become the convenient babysitter. There was one night, I think Lucas was like 10 months old, when Victoria came home at 2 in the morning saying she had been at a networking event for influencers. She smelled like alcohol and didn't look me in the eye when I asked her how it went. She just went straight to the shower and then to sleep on the couch because according to her, she didn't want to wake the baby. But Lucas slept like a rock in his room, so it didn't make sense. Things kept deteriorating for months, increasingly distant, increasingly secretive with her phone, and I kept working and taking care of Lucas, basically being a single father while married, but I still didn't want to accept reality because, I don't know, I guess part of me thought it was just a phase, that when she got tired of trying to be famous on the internet, things would go back to normal. How naive I was, honestly. Everything exploded one night when I came home from the hospital after a particularly brutal shift. It was like 11 at night, and Lucas was asleep. Victoria was in the living room with her laptop open, and she told me we needed to talk, and from the tone of her voice, I knew my life was about to change forever. She sat there, with a calmness that seemed rehearsed to me, and told me she had been having an affair for the past 6 months with a guy named Zachary she had met on Instagram, an influencer with like 1 million followers or something, and that she was in love with him, that she wanted to be with him, that our relationship had ended a long time ago, and she was just waiting for the right moment to tell me. Can you believe it? 6 months. Half a year. Cheating on me while I worked to support our family and took care of our son. I asked her if she was sure, if she had thought about Lucas, if she didn't want to try couples therapy, anything. Because despite everything, I still loved her, or at least loved the idea of what we had been. But she just pulled out some papers from her bag and told me, "I already talked to a lawyer. Here are the divorce papers. I just need you to sign them." I sat there looking at those papers, unable to process what was happening, and the worst of all, what really destroyed me, was when I asked her what was going to happen with Lucas, and she said, "You can keep him. I don't want custody. Zachary and I are going to travel and build our brand together, and a baby doesn't fit into those plans right now." She said that. She literally said that our 1-year-old son didn't fit into her plans. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I couldn't breathe properly, and all I could say was, "So just like that, you're leaving and abandoning your son?" And she shrugged and said something, like, You're going to be a better single father than I would be a single mother, and besides, you make more money than me. It makes more sense this way. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed watching Lucas sleep in his crib. This innocent little being who had no idea that his mother was abandoning him for an Instagram influencer and dreams of fame that probably would never come true. The next day, I called a lawyer, reviewed the papers Victoria had prepared, and indeed, she wasn't asking for anything. Not custody, not child support, not division of assets. She just wanted to get out of our marriage quickly and cleanly. Part of me wanted to fight, make this difficult for her, but another part just wanted it to end, rip off the Band-Aid and start healing. I signed the papers 2 weeks later. The divorce was processed in record time because we both agreed on everything. And just like that, after 4 years of marriage, Victoria left my life. Or at least that's what I thought. During the following months, I focused on Lucas, organized my schedule at the hospital to be able to be with him as much as possible, hired a wonderful nanny for when I had to work, and basically built a new life for the two of us. Victoria moved in with Zachary. She posted constant photos of them traveling to exotic places, at exclusive parties, living this influencer life she had wanted so much. And I blocked her social media because seeing her so happy after destroying our family made me feel sick. Lucas started walking, saying his first words, all those precious moments that parents treasure, and she was missing them for likes and followers on the internet. Then, like 4 months after the divorce, I got a call from Victoria. We hadn't talked since we signed the papers, and my first reaction was not to answer. But something made me pick up. Maybe I thought she had reconsidered about Lucas, that she wanted to be part of his life again. I was completely wrong. She was calling to tell me she was pregnant, 3 months along, and that the baby was Zachary's, obviously, but that she had thought a lot about this and had decided she wanted to have the baby. I told her that seemed fine to me, that it was her life. I didn't understand why she was calling to tell me this, and she just said, I just wanted you to know, see you, and hung up. It was strange, but I let it go. It wasn't my problem. I had enough with my own life. The following months were an emotional roller coaster. On one hand, I was enjoying my time with Lucas, watching him grow and become this little human being with his own personality. But on the other hand, I couldn't help feeling this mix of rage and sadness every time I thought about Victoria, about how she had thrown everything away. And then something happened that changed everything. Something I never saw coming, and that was basically like winning the lottery, although not exactly in the way people imagine. My Aunt Beatrice, my father's sister, was an incredible woman. She never married. Dedicated her life to building a real estate business that eventually became quite successful. I had always been her favorite nephew. We spent time together when I was a kid. She supported me during college and medical school, but she lived in another state, and after I married Victoria, we drifted apart a bit. You know how it happens. Life gets busy. Aunt Beatrice was like 68 years old when she was diagnosed with cancer, and by the time I found out it was already stage 4, and there wasn't much to do. I traveled to see her a couple of times, took Lucas so she could meet him, and she was so happy to meet her great-nephew. But she was also furious when I told her about Victoria and the divorce. I remember, she said, that woman is a fool. She let go of the best man she's ever going to meet, and you're going to be fine, my love. You're going to be better than fine. Aunt Beatrice passed away like 2 weeks after that conversation. It was quick and relatively painless thanks to hospice care. And I was sad but also relieved that she was no longer suffering. The funeral was small. She didn't have children or many close relatives, and after the burial, her lawyer asked me to stay because he needed to talk to me about her will. I sat in that office, expecting him to tell me she had left me something sentimental, maybe some photos or jewelry. But what he told me almost made me fall off my chair. Aunt Beatrice had left me everything. Everything. Her real estate business, her properties, her investments, everything added up to approximately $2,800,000, almost $3 million. I sat there unable to speak, literally couldn't form words, and the lawyer explained that she had updated her will right after meeting Lucas, that she had decided I was the only person in the family who deserved her fortune because, according to a letter she wrote, I was hardworking, dedicated, a good father, and had shown true character. by staying strong after my wife abandoned me. I left that office in total shock, drove home on autopilot, and when I arrived, I just sat on the living room floor while Lucas played with his toys, trying to process that my life had just changed in ways I never imagined. I didn't tell anyone about the inheritance at first. I needed time to process it and decide what to do. I kept working at the hospital, kept my normal routine, but now I had this financial security I had never had before. I could pay off all my student loans in one shot. I could secure Lucas's future. I could breathe without worrying so much about money. It was liberating but also overwhelming. You know, I had never had that kind of money before, and suddenly, I had to make important decisions about investments and property management. And then, like 2 months after receiving the inheritance, when Victoria was pregnant at like 7 months, she knocked on my door. I opened and there she was, with her pregnant belly, looking tired, and without the Instagram glamour she projected in her photos, and she told me, "I need to talk to you. It's important." I let her in, mostly because I didn't want to have this conversation at the entrance where neighbors could hear. And we sat in the living room, the same living room where months before she had told me she was leaving me. What she told me was so absolutely crazy that at first I thought she was joking. Victoria, with all the seriousness in the world, asked me to sign her baby's birth certificate as if it were mine. She said things with Zachary weren't going as well as she expected, that he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was scared of the responsibility, and that she had thought that maybe, if I signed as the father on the certificate, she could ask me for child support and have more financial stability. I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing, and I said, "Wait, let me understand this. You want me, your ex-husband whom you abandoned, to sign as the father of a baby that's not mine, so you can sue me for child support?" And she nodded as if it were the most logical thing in the world and said, "I thought maybe you owed me this, for everything I went through with you. I don't know if you've ever been so angry that you actually feel strangely calm, like your brain says this situation is so ridiculous it's not even worth exploding, but that's how I felt at that moment." I told her no, obviously, that she was completely crazy if she thought I was going to take responsibility for a child that wasn't mine, that she had made her decisions and now had to live with the consequences. Victoria started crying, saying she had no money, that Zachary didn't make as much as she thought, that most of her sponsorships were free products but not actual cash payments, that she didn't know how she was going to support a baby. I told her that was her problem and Zachary's, not mine, and that she needed to leave my house. But here's where the story gets interesting. Because after Victoria left, I kept thinking about the whole situation, about her level of manipulation and audacity, and something in me decided that I wasn't going to let her get away with it without consequences. I didn't know exactly what the relationship between Victoria and Zachary was like, if he knew she had come to ask me this, but I had the feeling he didn't know, that this was a plan only Victoria had. So, I did something that was probably a bit vengeful, but that honestly, I don't regret. I found Zachary's Instagram profile. It wasn't hard because Victoria tagged him in everything, and I sent him a direct message explaining the whole situation. I told him that Victoria had come to my house to ask me to sign as the father of their baby on the birth certificate so she could sue me for child support, that she was basically planning to legally complicate another person to secure money because apparently he wasn't providing what she expected. I sent him screenshots of our text messages where she had written to me after her visit, insisting that I reconsider, that it was best for the baby, all her manipulation documented in text. Zachary responded like 2 hours later, and he was clearly furious. He told me he had no idea about this, that Victoria had told him she was just going to see Lucas and apologize for how things had ended, that she never mentioned anything about the birth certificate. He thanked me for telling him the truth and said they were going to have a serious conversation. I didn't hear anything for a few days, but then Victoria sent me like 20 messages in a row cursing, calling me everything, saying I had ruined her life, that Zachary had canceled their engagement. E didn't know they were engaged. She never posted anything about it on Instagram, probably because the photos weren't aesthetic enough, and that it was all my fault. I responded with a single message telling her that I didn't ruin anything, that she ruined her own life with her decisions and manipulations, and that if Zachary left her, it was because he finally saw who she really was. After that, I blocked her on everything. I didn't need her drama in my life. Lucas was almost 2 years old at that time. He was starting to talk more, and was the happiest and sweetest kid in the world, completely oblivious to all the chaos his mother was causing, and I wanted to keep him that way, protected and happy. Like a month later, when Victoria was already 8 months pregnant, she showed up at my door again, but this time she came with a lawyer. They handed me formal papers where Victoria was officially relinquishing all her parental rights over Lucas, not just de facto as it had been until now, but legally, forever. The lawyer explained that Victoria wanted to close all legal ties with me to be able to move forward with her life, and that part of that included the formal termination of her rights as a mother. I signed those papers. Without hesitation, I even felt relieved, because now Lucas was completely protected from any future attempt by Victoria to come in and out of his life when it was convenient for her. Victoria's baby was born like 3 weeks later. A boy, according to what I learned from mutual acquaintances, who still followed her Instagram. She posted a photo from the hospital with the baby covered in a blanket, something generic about new beginnings and unconditional love, but she didn't tag Zachary in the post, which seemed weird to me. Turns out, according to what one of the nurses who worked with me and who had been Victoria's friend told me later, Zachary had demanded a paternity test before signing the birth certificate because, after all the drama with me, he had started to doubt Victoria in general. The paternity test confirmed the baby was Zachary's, obviously, but something about that whole situation, having to do the test, the lies, the manipulation, was the last straw. Zachary signed the certificate as the father because it was the right thing to do, but he ended the relationship with Victoria permanently. He told her he could be in his son's life, that he was going to pay child support and fulfill his responsibilities as a father, but that he didn't want anything romantic with her ever again. Victoria was devastated. Her perfect plan of influencer life with her famous partner completely crumbled. And the best, or worst, depending on how you see it, is that her social media career also started to collapse. Turns out people on the internet are ruthless when they start to see through the facade. Some of Victoria's followers who also followed Zachary noticed they weren't posting together anymore. They started asking questions, and eventually someone who knew both of us, he never knew who, commented the real story on one of her posts. They didn't give many specific details, but said enough, something like, "This woman abandoned her 1-year-old baby for an influencer, and now the influencer left her. Karma is real." The comments exploded. People started investigating. They found old photos of me and Victoria together that were still on the internet. Photos of Lucas when he was a baby, and basically put the whole story together. Victoria tried to control the damage. She posted a long statement talking about postpartum mental health issues and how she had made mistakes but was working on herself. But it was too late. Her reputation was destroyed. Brands canceled their sponsorships. Her followers started abandoning her en masse. Every post she made received thousands of negative comments. Eventually, she deleted her Instagram completely. Or maybe just made it private. I don't know, because obviously I didn't follow her. But she basically disappeared from social media, which is ironic considering that was exactly what she had sacrificed everything to get. I heard that Victoria ended up moving back in with her parents, living in their basement with her baby, trying to put her life back together while Zachary was in another state, fulfilling child support payments but without much contact beyond that. Her parents eventually got tired of supporting her, according to what I was told. They told her she needed to get a job or contribute somehow, and she ended up working in retail. Nothing glamorous, nothing like the life she had imagined. I'm not going to lie. Part of me felt some satisfaction hearing all this, not because I wanted things to go badly for her, but because she was finally facing the real consequences of her actions, something she had avoided for a long time. While all this was happening, my life was getting better and better. I left my job at the hospital to be able to spend more time with Lucas, and started learning about the real estate business I inherited from my aunt, Beatrice. I hired a professional manager for daily operations, but I got involved enough to understand how everything worked, and it turns out I have quite a talent for this. Who would have thought? The business continued to be profitable. The properties my aunt had bought over the years had appreciated significantly, and I was in a financial position I never dreamed of having. Lucas was like 3.5 years old when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated to answer, but I did, and it was Victoria. We hadn't talked in over a year, since that time with the lawyer, and the first thing I thought was, what does she want now? Her voice sounded different, softer, almost desperate, and she told me she had been thinking a lot, that she had realized the mistakes she had made, that she missed Lucas, that she wanted to try to fix things. And then, with all the audacity in the world, she asked me if there was any possibility of us getting back together. I laughed. I literally laughed on the phone. I couldn't help it. The situation was so absurdly ridiculous that the laughter just came out. I told her, Victoria, you abandoned your son when he was 1 year old. You tried to manipulate me into signing as the father of another child. You legally relinquished your parental rights. You betrayed me in the worst possible ways. And now that your life is a mess and my life is stable, you want to come back? Seriously? She started crying, saying she had changed, that she was in therapy, that she just wanted a chance to get to know Lucas again. And I told her no, that she had lost that right when she signed those papers, that Lucas was happy and stable, and I wasn't going to allow her to come into his life to potentially destroy him when things got difficult again. I hung up the phone and blocked her again, and that was the last time I had contact with Victoria. From what I heard later, she ended up moving to another state, trying to start over, away from all the people who knew her story. I don't know if she still has her other child or what happened with that situation. Honestly, I don't care anymore. My life now is completely different from what it was 3 years ago. And the truth is, I wouldn't change anything. Well, except maybe having seen who Victoria really was before marrying her. But even that gave me Lucas, so I can't completely regret it. Lucas is almost 5 now. He's the most incredible kid you'll meet. Smart, funny, loving, and he doesn't remember anything about his mother because he was too young when she left. Sometimes he asks me about her. Not much, but occasionally. And I tell him the truth in an age-appropriate way, that his mom couldn't be here, but that I love him enough for 2. Eventually, when he's older, I'll tell him the whole story. I think he has the right to know it, but for now, he just needs to know he's loved and cared for. The real estate business is going incredibly well. I hired more people, we expanded to new areas, and it turns out the vision my Aunt Beatrice had for the business was solid and sustainable long-term. I still do some medical consultations. Occasionally, mostly because I enjoy medicine and don't want to completely lose my skills, but my main focus is Lucas and the business. We have a new house, bigger, with a yard where Lucas can play, in a safe neighborhood with good schools, everything I want for him. Sometimes I think about how Victoria must feel now, knowing she left all this for dreams of fame that never materialized, that if she had been patient and loyal, she would have a comfortable life, a son who would love her, financial stability, but she chose the superficial over the real, and now she's paying the price. I don't feel sorry for her, honestly. I just feel something like indifference tinged with a bit of satisfaction knowing that karma is real. She made her choices, I made mine, and the consequences of both are clear. Life has strange ways of working. I was at my worst moment, recently divorced, betrayed, being a single father without having planned it, and then I received this unexpected blessing from my aunt that changed everything. Victoria was at her best moment, according to her, living her influencer dream, in love with her new famous partner, and everything crumbled because of her own manipulation and lies. I'm not saying wealth solved all my problems, because being a single parent is hard no matter how much money you have, but it definitely made things more manageable and gave me options I wouldn't have had otherwise. Lucas starts kindergarten next month. He's excited to meet new friends and learn new things, and I'm excited to watch him grow and become who he's going to be. I thank my Aunt Beatrice every day for the opportunity she gave me, not just financially, but also for believing in me when I doubted myself that I could do this alone. And I thank Victoria, too, in a strange way, because her betrayal freed me from a relationship that clearly wasn't working and allowed me to focus on what really matters. Would I like Lucas to have a mother? Sure, in an ideal world, yes, but not just any mother. And definitely not Victoria, as she was then. Maybe someday I'll meet someone special who wants to be part of our lives, or maybe not. And that's okay either way. For now, it's Lucas and me against the world, and the truth is we don't need anything else.